Hi and welcome. The email looked like a tramp dressed in navy, serif font. You're cordially invited. As if Daniel Reed had ever been cordial. The location was the Fairmont Olympic in Seattle. The date, this Friday. And the occasion, a private gayer celebrating new beginnings. Lena let the cursor hover over RSVP, while the kettle clicked behind her. She could hear Daniel's laugh even now, the one he used for donors. Jewelries and women he didn't plan to keep. She almost deleted the message. Instead, she forwarded it to her spam folder. Missed the bus, and then, against judgment and good sense, bought a second-hand black dress on her lunch break. If it was a prank, she would walk through it with her chin up. The week had been all scaffolding and rain. Lena Park 33. Rechecked blueprints for a community housing retrofit, while water pried at the window seams of the nonprofit's Pioneer Square office. She'd fallen in love with buildings, the way some people fell for music through repetition. Pain and the memory of standing in a place that shouldn't stand. But she could name the year a cornice was added. The species of wood hidden beneath stucco. The acoustics of an empty stairwell. The divorce had left her with a studio in the Central District, her mother's rice cooker, and a job that never asked whether she was lovable. She liked that about beams and loads. They didn't mind what she'd failed to keep. Are you going? Priya asked over the cubicle wall, holding a mug that said, World's Okayest Engineer. To what Priya raised her phone? The society pages were pre-flushed with anticipation. A hush-hush. Jayla tech and real estate money mingling in velvet. Daniel Reed's firm Azimuth Capital was rumored to be unveiling a partnership. It was tagged private. The guest list was handpicked, and yet, as if by error or malice, Lena had an invitation. He's baiting you, Priya said. Stay home. Watch Chef's Table and let your ex be rich and ridiculous without you. Lena laughed tightly. I'm not going. But she felt the tug. She knew the anatomy of humiliation, how a person could be positioned, how the room could be set. She also knew the physics of refusal. Force meets force, and everything stubborn stays. On Friday she walked past the rain-polished stone lions guarding the Fairmont. The lobby smelled of lemon polish and money. At check-in, a woman with a flawless bun found Lena's name with a practiced frown that softened into PR brightness. Miss Park. Of course the Azimuth table is to your right. It would be easier to leave. Instead, Lena slid a hand down the seam of her thrifted dress, lifted her shoulders, and entered a ballroom lit like a jewelry box. Seattle's wealthy had a style. A damp wool suiting disguised by candle shoes. Somehow dark and new. Daniel stood near the stage, the same height, the same lean grace that had drawn Lena years ago when they'd shared a bus stop and a broken umbrella. His tie was slate, his eyes glass. When he saw her, he didn't falter. He smiled as if they'd planned to meet. Lena, he said when she approached, I'm glad you came. Why am I here? She asked. Why is anyone anywhere? He replied. A philosopher's shrug perched on a viper. Then he laughed. And his colleagues laughed, and a woman in gold, Eva with the philanthropic daughter of a shipping empire, looped her arm through Daniel's. This is Eva, he said. My fiancée. Lena tasted metal. She nodded to Eva, whose beauty was a knife wrapped in tissue. Congratulations. It's good of you to be gracious. Ever said, tone neutral in a way that cut. Lena pivoted to leave, but then saw the photographer, the white bounce card like a sail trained on her face. She understood too late. The invite wasn't for reconciliation. It wasn't even cruelty for cruelty's sake. It was contempt. A story. The ex-wife meets the fiancé, acute. See how well. She pretends a clip to be sent around private chats. Her face pinned like a moth. Excuse me, she said, and nearly made it to the corridor, when the room quieted with the prelude to power. Someone was taking the stage. The man's presence absorbed the chandeliers, and now the MC said, Our keynote sponsor, Adrien Voss, CEO of Voss Urban double quotes. Lena knew the name. Everyone who worked in buildings knew it. Voss Urban was a machine that converted derelict blocks into glass and green, depending on the article. Voss was a visionary or a billionaire whose projects priced out the city's soul. He was taller than she expected, broad-shouldered in a suit that fit like fact. His hair was trimmed close, a scar, faint, surgical, piloting down from his left brow. He was younger than the whispers had made him late 30s. Perhaps his face, when it turned, didn't scan it. Interrogated Seattle, he said, and his voice carried with the certainty of someone who'd been believed since birth. Our city is a harbor. It should be a harbor for everyone. Plaudits the practice kind. Adrien smiled without warmth, then let his eyes sweep the room. They caught on Lena just a flick, like a searchlight grazing a rooftop. Tonight, he continued, we announce partnership that will change the way we build access to housing. Something real. Not a slogan. But first I have a personal announcement. Daniel's attention sharpened. Ava's hand tightened around his arm. Adrienne's gaze returned to Lena. As if called, I know this is unorthodox, he said. But I learned a long time ago that timing isn't ours. It's the city's. It's the weather's. It's the work's. So I'm engaged. Silence. A collective blink. Then a rustling storm of whispers. He lifted a hand. To keep the speculation honest, I'm engaged to Lena. Park. The lights collapsed to a single frame. Lena's face white in shock. The photographer's shutter hiccuped. Daniel's mouth opened. No words. Lena didn't move. She felt the room tilt like a pier in rogue wake. Adrienne began walking toward her without breaking eye contact. The crowd parting, Miss Park. He said when he reached her, voice pitched low. May I borrow you? She found her voice thin, but, oh, I don't know you. True, he said softly. But I know what they intended. His eyes flicked past her to the flashbulb. Play along for 2 hours. Then tell me to hell you'll leave with your head high. This is insane, she said. So is letting them feed you to the lions. He extended his hand. She hesitated, then took it. Some choices aren't right or wrong. There. A map drawn after you've already started walking. They stood together under the chandelier's drift. Adrien didn't squeeze. Lena's hand didn't lean possessively. He simply existed in a way that forced the room to reorganize around the idea of them. The PR girl materialized like a stage whisper and asked for one photo. Adrien said later, without looking at her, Adrien, your office said nothing about this. Someone said, Sloan Harrow Voss, Urban's communications chief. All precise hair and red-rimmed glasses. We need to align messaging. We're aligned, Adrienne replied. Furthermore, we're engaged. Lena could feel 1,000 assessments dragging across her unadorned neckline. The thrift store fabric. The absence of a ring. She leaned toward Adrien. What's your game? Daniel reads fun. He murmured. Ever's content. But their hobby is a machete. It's cleaner if I dull the blade. I didn't ask for your rescue. No. But you didn't ask for their performance either. A tray of champagne interposed like a plea. Adrienne took 2 flutes. Offered one to Lena. She held it for something to do with her hands. Daniel approached. Escorted by a smile that had paid for more than one apartment. He gave Adrien a firm, leveled glance. Congratulations, he said. Didn't know you were seeing anyone. You don't know a lot of things, Adrien said mildly. Daniel's eyes cut to Lena. She waited for his smirk, the one that could shrink a room. But he looked thrown in a way that put age in his face. Lena, he started. Don't, she said. He closed his mouth, then added, This isn't you. And what is? She asked. A silver-haired board member stepped in with the cheer of someone who believes they referee the world. Adrien, he boomed. This is quite a development. New beginnings, Adrienne said, borrowing Daniel's copy as if to return it smudged. Isn't that what we're celebrating? Eva watched from a cluster of sponsors. Grip white on her clutch. She possessed the brittle poise of a violin before its string snaps. Her mother, Agnes with Byzantine in black velvet, murmured something to her. Agnes's eyes slid to Lena, cool appraisal mixed with something like curiosity. During the auction, Adrienne stood at the back with Lena. The projector cycled through renderings. Sleek apartments with green roofs and children playing on clean grass. Those kids, Lena said, are stock photos taken in L.A. Adrienne's mouth hooked. You can tell the light is wrong for Seattle and the grass is fake. You have a good eye. I have a tired one. He shifted so she could see the stage. Azimuth and With's Family Foundation are courting our affordable housing bond. He said they want the banner, not the work. If they control it, the units will be affordable in name only, penciled with assumptions that move numbers like a shell game. And you need a fiancé to stop them. I need a narrative that makes it costly to oppose me right now. People love a love story. It's a shallow shield, but it blunts knives. You could have picked someone else. I could have, he said unblinking. But I saw your face. When Reed introduced his fiancée and I saw the camera. Lena felt heat rise. So I'm a prop. You're a person in a bad moment. Adrienne said I'm offering a worse moment with an escape hatch. You're terrible at comfort. Don't offer it. A city council member approached, eager to be photographed. Mere money. Adrienne became the instrument. He was made to be competent, charming in an industrial way. Lena watched his blade turn in practiced arcs. She thought of structural integrity. How some beams looked too thin and were stronger than anything else in the building. Near dessert, Adrienne leaned down. 15 more minutes, then we leave separate exits, she said, if you want. He paused or not. The photographer harvested his courage and asked again for a photo. Adrien finally agreed. The flash was white. Close. Lena's instinct was to tilt away. Adrienne's was to step in. He didn't touch her. In the photo later, they would look like two people in a storm, leaning toward the quiet eye on their way out. Agnes glided into their path. Up close, her beauty was the kind that didn't beg favor. It expected it. Mr. Voss, she said, voiced velvet with wire under it. How romantic. Do let us host a little share in your honor. I'm not much for parties, Adrienne said. Nonsense. Agnes's gaze turned to Lena, assessing lineage, posture, the stitching at the hem. And you must be Lena, she said. She didn't offer her last name, a sturdy name. Agnes murmured, I admire the pragmatic. We should go, Adrienne said. Early day. Of course. Agnes's smile held. Do look out for sharp turns. One can misstep. When dazzled outside, Seattle's rain had steadied, the kind that seeped into clothes and purposes. Adrienne opened the car door of a black sedan. I'll have you home, he said. No detours. I can call a cab. He regarded her. Lena. May I call you Lena? It's my name. I apologize for the ambush within the ambush. You're not sorry, she said. I am strategically, he said and almost smiled. Will you sit? She got in. The car smelled like leather and rain-wet wool. They drove over slick streets. When they reached her building, a tuck of brick between a tattoo shop and a community garden, Adrienne leaned on the console as if the car were a negotiating table. 2 hours bought you space, he said. But the story will live beyond tonight. Will you have coffee with me tomorrow? We can plan what the world will assume has already been planned. I don't owe you anything. You owe no one anything, he said. But you can use what you're owed, she considered. Pride was a solid material, heavy, dense. It could anchor. It could drown. 1 hour, she said. Public place, no photos. Agreed, he said. And for the first time his voice softened a degree. 10 a mum. More coffee on second. He didn't try to shake her hand. He didn't ask for her number. He left. And she stood on the sidewalk looking up at the wet brick of her building. Feeling both played and strangely, not inside. She received a text from an unknown number. Unknown. It's Priya Sloan from Vus PR. Found me on LinkedIn. She asked if you're media-averse or media manageable. I told her you were neither and both. Lena. I hate you, Priya. Love you too. Call me in the morning or from jail. Lena set down her phone and let the quiet of her studio press around her. She lay awake for hours. The image of Daniel's mouth opening and closing like a fish behind glass, replaying in her head. When she finally slept, she dreamed of scaffolds bending in wind without breaking. More. Coffee smelled like burnt sugar and ambition. Baristas wrote names on cups in neat engineer print. A DRIEN was there already at a corner table with his jacket off, sleeves rolled to reveal a scar at his forearm like a pale river. His watch was expensive but unshowy. You came, he said. I'm considering common sense. Character flaw to be strengthened, she said. Sitting. He slid a stack of printed pages toward her. This is a draft agreement. I'm not signing anything. Good, he said. Read it and tell me what is unacceptable. She scanned. No NDA, no morality clause, a stipend modest. A timeline, 3 weeks, after which both parties would melt. The narrative quietly. She blinked. 3 weeks. I need 3 things. Time to secure the bond cover while I untangle a with adjacent entanglement and to flush Reed's hobbyists into the open. What entanglement, he considered, then told her. 2 years ago, I authorized an accelerated inspection on a waterfront development legal. But the inspector was inexperienced. We missed a lateral bracing floor. It didn't collapse. But the fix was costly. With funded the fix, and has implied they can make trouble if I don't play nice. So Agnes owns a string tied to your wrist. Yes. He met her eyes. Your turn, my turn. To confess, to tell me where you'll think you don't deserve to be here. Lena felt the old ache. The one that built shelter out of scarcity. When I first started with the nonprofit, she said, we were retrofitting a building on render. The budget was already carved to the bone. I let a subcontractor talk me into cheating out on seismic anchors because the model said they'd be fine. They weren't a collapse. But during a windstorm, a stairwell shifted and a tenant fell. She broke her wrist. It's on me. Did you fix it? Yes, and I visited her every week. She forgave me. I didn't. Adrienne nodded as if checking the box on a form labeled human. We carry our errors like bricks, sometimes. We build with them. Spare me your aphorisms, she said. But she wasn't as angry as she wanted to be. He slid a second paper across. I also had Sloan compile a damage profile. Since last night, 3 blogs and 1 gossip account have posted your photo. 2 commenters called you a climber. 1 called you poor. 1 found your rivalry account and confused knitting with witchcraft. Lena snorted. Witches don't knit acrylic. Point being, he said, if you take my hand in public for 3 weeks, I owe you armor. What kind? Media coaching. A make-believe ring. You get to choose and veto. Power over every photo op. You'll accompany me to 3 events. You'll eat 1 dinner with my sister. Furthermore, you will not be alone with any member of the With family. Furthermore, you make it sound like they bite. They nibble until you bleed. She leaned back. And what do you get besides optics? I get to see how Reed responds when someone he tried to humiliate is lifted above him without his consent. You make men into projects. No, he said. I make structures. Men walk through them and reveal their load-bearing flaws. She thought of Daniel's face when Adrienne had named her. She thought of Ava's hand on Daniel's arm. Was it loved or a deal? Something of both, probably. The world was a ledger. Feelings were entries. If I do this, she said, you don't lie to me. I don't lie. Adrienne said I omit. Then include me a pause. And then he nodded. Done. They shook hands. His palm was warm. A map of calluses. That surprised her. He noticed her attention and said, I worked summers as a framer in Yakima. My father believed in proof. And now he believes in different proofs. They walked out into a morning that held a brief luminous break in the clouds. We'll need to be seen once. Today. Adrienne said something casual. A bookstore. It'll make the ring look like more than a prop. Lena sighed. Fine, but I'm choosing the ring. Good, he said, and a hint of relief showed, which humanized him more than anything else had. Sloan will arrange a private appointment so we can avoid paparazzi. No, Lena said. We do it at a regular store. We stand in line. We compliment someone else's choice. If you want the armor to look like skin, you wear it, he considered, then smiled with the quick, real light of a street lamp flickering back on after a storm. You're right. At Elliott Bay Book Company, Adrienne carried her coat without asking permission and listened to a clear recommend an essay. Collection about class and cities. He bought it for both of them at a small jeweler on Capitol Hill. Lena chose a thin gold band with a tiny marquise. Diamond set sideways, the least showy ring in the my case, the clear said. It's timeless instead of it's cheap. And Lena liked her for that. As they stepped back onto the sidewalk. A college kid with a DSLR lifted it. Adrien Voss, he called like invoking a saint. Congratulations. Man. Adrien glanced at Lena. She nodded once the kid snapped. Can I get a quote, he asked. Cheeks flushed with the thrill of proximity. Like, what's love to a guy like you? Adrienne looked at Lena as if she were the only audience. Love is a kind of engineering, he said. You make something that can carry weight without collapsing when it's quiet. The kid blinked. Cool, he said. Not fully understanding. He posted the photo before they crossed the street. By evening, the photo had gathered comments. Someone mocked the ring as dainty. Someone else sighed. Actually, it's perfect. Priya called. Are you engaged to a billionaire? I'm engaged to a headache, Lena sighed. Headaches pay well. Headaches come with armor. Just keep your oxygen mask on. Power is thick in those rooms. You'll start breathing it before you know. I won't, Lena said. But she heard the warning like rebar in concrete. Hidden essential dinner with Adrienne's sister, Naomi, took place at an Ethiopian restaurant in Columbia, city that smelled like Bursar and home. Naomi had their father's laugh and their mother's insistence on second helpings. She greeted Lena with a hug that felt undeserved. And exactly right. Adrienne's awful at soft things. Naomi said, tearing an era. He forgets that not every problem is a load to distribute. Thank you. Lena said dryly, that's reassuring. Adrienne rolled his eyes, but gently. I'm not made of rebar, he said. You are 90% rebar. Naomi replied. Then turned to Lena. He told me the truth about the performance. We're in. I approve of it less than I should. I can step out. Lena said, startled. Furthermore, I don't want to trespass. Naomi shook her head. No. No, I mean, I wish he didn't have to step in at all. But if you must, better with your eyes open and a hand on the exit double quotes. Lena warmed to Naomi's directness. What was he like before? She asked. Lightly. A stubborn boy who built bridges over irrigation ditches with twine and stolen planks, Naomi said. And a teenager who wanted to save our mother, which he couldn't. Adrienne's jaw worked. Naomi. She asked. Naomi said gently. Our mother died of a bleed after a simple surgery when we were in college. Preventable. The hospital settled. Adrienne doesn't like preventable mistakes. He works like he can. Backspace death. Lena understood something. large and small. A shape slid into focus. "I'm sorry," she said and meant it. "Thank you," Adrienne said and meant it. After dinner, they walked along the sidewalk, passing families and young couples. Adrienne kept pace with Lena instead of leading. It would be a small thing to someone who had always been offered equal space. To Lena, it mattered. "What will Daniel do next?" Adrienne asked as they waited at a crosswalk. "He doesn't like to lose face," Lena said. "He'll pretend your announcement was an inside joke. Then he'll find a more efficient way to cut me. Like what he'll feed a story to a mid-tier journalist, nonprofit engineer uses fake engagement to leapfrog into Voss circles. He'll make it sound like an expose about power imbalance, when it's really about reasserting his own. Then we beat him to it," Adrienne said. "We do an interview with a reporter who isn't bought about the problems with cosmetic affordability. Metrics, you talk about anchors and wind loads. You mention your mistake. You inoculate yourself. I don't want to be a public face." "You already are," Adrienne said. Not unkindly. The interview set up by Sloan in 72 hours was with a local journalist, Maya Fontaine, who had a talent for hearing what people thought they weren't saying. Maya arrived with a small recorder and a question lodged like a splinter. "Why you?" she asked Lena before the mic was even on. "Why did he announce you?" Lena considered lying. She chose something adjacent to truth. "Because I looked like the kind of person who needed someone to hold a door open. And he's the kind of person who thinks doors should be structural and universal." Mia smiled quick. "And are you engaged?" "We are engaged," Adrienne said. He held Mia's gaze with the relaxed ferocity that makes room for no follow-up. It was a lie. That contained a wish. That contained a barricade. They talked about the bond, about lateral bracing and stock photos, about how certain philanthropic foundations use affordable, the way some menus use artisan, a price point disguised as virtue. Lena described how anchors flex and absorb energy, how a stairwell can shift even when everything looks fine. She told Mia about the Ranger building and the broken wrist. Mia didn't pounce. She let the admission land and find its own gravity. After the interview, Adrienne and Lena stood in the parking lot behind the paper's office. The air smelled like wet paper and car exhaust. "You didn't have to share that," Adrienne said. "I did. If I want to be human and not a shield," she replied. "Being human is expensive. Being a shield is lethal," she said. He looked at her then as if something in his head had been tilted and now clicked into a truer alignment. "You're more dangerous than I thought," he said. "To whom?" "To everyone who thinks you'll bend the way they want." Back in her studio, Lena found a message on her building's group thread. "Unit 3's ceiling is leaking again." She went upstairs with a flashlight and knocked Mrs. Hernandez, 70, fierce. Let her in a thin brown line, unspoiled down the corner seam, like the beginning of a bruise. "I'll call Marco." Lena said, "We'll fix it tomorrow." "You work too much." Mrs. Hernandez said, "You need someone to look at you like you look at buildings." "I have a ring now," Lena said, half joke. Mrs. Hernandez eyed it. "Pretty." She said, "Don't let it be a lock." The embossed card arrived like old money. Smells, lin and ink. A supper to honor love and civic virtue hosted by Agnes, within her Queen Anne mansion that looked like a chess piece retired from active duty. Very medieval, Priya said when she saw the invite. "Like they'll ask you to drink from an antique cup." "It's a trap," Lena said. "It's a trap with prime rib," Priya replied. Sloan was crisp in briefing. "We accept. We control entry and exit. No alcohol for either of you. Keep to the north parlor where the photographer can't isolate you." "With hates to be told where she can't be," Adrienne said. "She'll pretend to like it for 30 minutes, Sloan said. "Then she'll remove a wall on the night. The mansion's lawns gleamed wet. Inside, a string quartet played a batch that made Lena's nerves hum. Agnes greeted them with a kiss of air and led them past a Chinese screen worth more than Lena's block ever. Stood by a window, a pale ember in silk, her attention toggling between Daniel and a woman in a navy dress. A reporter. Lena realized the expensive kind that calls it a profile. Agnes circulated them like rare wine. Her compliments landed like invoices, so refreshing. She told, Lena's dress so unpretentious. In the north parlor, Adrienne positioned them near a painting of a storm at sea. Storms are honest, he murmured. Agnes summoned them with the subtlest tilt of her chin. A toast, she announced to the room, selected by a champagne flute. To unions forged not only by affection but by common cause. Daniel's jaw was tight. Ava's smile was a crease cut into porcelain. A dream. Agnes said sweetly, "Tell us when you knew." Lena was the one Adrienne didn't look to. Lena to rescue him. He didn't resort to canned romance. He spoke with the simplicity of a man unwilling to perform more than necessary. I knew when she corrected a model, not to win a point, but to prevent a failure. None of you would see Agnes's smile sharpen. And you, Miss Park, when did you know Mr. Voss was worth your trust? Lena took her seconds. People held their breaths for different reasons. Curiosity, malice, hope. When he told me something unflattering about himself without calculating the advantage, she said. And when he didn't ask me to be less than I am for the comfort of a room. A thin hush replaced by polite laughter. Agnes lifted her glass to honesty then. May it always be so bearable. Food came expensive as absolution. At the midpoint, the navy-dressed reporter intercepted Lena near the powder room, up close. Her eyes were kind, which made the danger worse. Miss Park, she said, Maya Fontaine printed your interview. Nicely done. I'm Hannah from Northwest Profile. I'm told you engineered your way into Mr. Voss's life quite efficiently. That's not how engineering works. Lena said, you're aware Daniel Reed is whispering other versions of the night at the Fairmont. Hannah said gently. He says he invited you as a gesture of closure and kindness. Lena smiled. Daniel often mistakes kindness for showmanship and the engagement. We're engaged. Lena said the lie had a texture now. It scraped less. Hannah hesitated, then lowered her voice. Off the record. Do you know that Agnes approached Daniel first with the idea of inviting you? He told someone at the bar, loudly after the toast. He thought he was a prince in a tableau. Agnes needed him to believe it. The ground shifted. The trap inside the trap revealed a hinge. Lena thanked Hannah and returned to the parlor, gaze sharpening to new angles. On the far side of the room, Agnes was speaking to Adrienne's legal counsel, a quiet man whose suits apologized for their cost. Her hand rested on his sleeve in a manner that suggested either flirtation or indictment. Lena crossed to Adrienne. She spoke low. At the place where speech becomes thought. It wasn't Daniel's idea. She said. Agnes engineered the invitation. Daniel's a useful idiot. The humiliation was a pilot. She wanted to see how you'd respond. She wanted you to declare something without preparation. A DRIEN, still. Why? Because then she owns your timing. Lena said. And she owns me. Unless we take that away. How? By telling the truth, almost all of it first. Not to press to the room that built the trap. You want a toast? Adrienne said, a half laugh. I want to remove her wall before she thinks to. He waited. Then not a. He took a glass, raised it. Agnes, he said. And the names silenced like a bell. Thank you for hosting us and for testing our load. Soft laughter and then alertness, as people understood. This would not be ordinary. Adrienne motioned to Lena. She lifted her own glass. I was invited to the Fairmont as a prop for someone else's story, she said. Mr. Voss interrupted that story with his own. Tonight, I'd like to interrupt the interruption with permission. Eyes, knives, the whisper of money. Ava watched with a small hunger that Lena didn't know how to read. I don't like being used, Lena said. But I understand strategy. Agnes understands it better. She knew that humiliating a woman in public might provoke a man into a declaration that could be leveraged. She was right, Agnes smiled. Teeth flattery, my dear, is a tonic. It's an X-ray. Lena said. The good news is our bones are intact. The better news is the story ends tonight. There will be no more stage surprises. If we continue to be engaged, it will be because we choose to be, not because a room or a check requires it. A murmur twisted through the guests. Someone coughed rich. Agnes inclined her head, bracing cancer. Bracing is good for earthquakes, Lena said. And for rooms like this. Daniel's mouth opened to fish again. Ava's knuckles bleached and then released. As if she'd been holding onto a cliff with one hand and finally pulled herself over, the quartet, uncertain, began to play something softer. As if music could smooth what words had creased after in the chat room's hush. Ever approached, up close. Her perfection blurred into something human. I didn't know about the invitation, she said. I mean, I knew, but I didn't know like that. Furthermore, I thought it was elegant. It wasn't, Lena said. Not unkindly, I'm leaving. Daniel. Ava blurted, as if the words had been trapped behind her teeth and finally broke free. Not because of you. Because I keep becoming versions of myself that I don't like in rooms like that. Lena believed her. Good. She said. Leave the room. Not just the man. Ava nodded, eyes bright. Don't let him. She added, glancing toward Adrien. Turn you into a project. I won't, Lena said. She hoped it was true. The bond vote approached like weather. Editorials sprouted. The interview with Mia aged into context of photos from the bookstore, and the with supper circulated, captioned with opinions that told on the captions more than the subjects. Lena learned the hard skill of not reading comments. After midnight at the nonprofit, a donor threatened to withdraw if Lena didn't tone down her personal life. The executive director, a woman who believed in both morals and rent, sighed. We'll survive without him, and meant it. Lena doubled her work. A penance that felt like repair. Daniel's whisper campaign sharpened into a story on a lifestyle site that used the word schemer 3 times in humble zero. Hannah, in an unrelated piece, wrote a clear-eyed feature on Agnes' philanthropy and its geometric relationship to power. And Agnes never forgave her. In the midst, Lena and Adrienne's performative closeness developed actual edges, moments that didn't feel like performance. A shared joke about a bad scone. A fight about a driver who almost clipped a bicyclist. Adrienne wanted to call the company and crush them with influence. Lena wanted to report to the city's anonymous tip line. You think everything can be fixed with levers, she said. Sometimes you have to push with your hands. You think pushing with your hands is purer? He said, not unkindly. Sometimes it's just slower. They compromise terribly and perfectly. Both lever and hands. One night, as rain raced down the window of Adrienne's office, they reviewed a revised affordability model. It was the first time Lena had been in his private space. Concrete wood. A single photograph of a Yakima field. He unbuttoned his cuffs and rolled his sleeves as he always did when work sharpened. She traced a line on the printout. If we shave this contingency, we can add 10 units without crushing maintenance. You're not just good, he said, you're honest. Don't say that like a surprise. It's not, he said. It's an anchor. She looked at him then, and the air altered. It happened slowly and then all at once. Like fog parting to reveal the shape he'd been walking toward. He reached, then stopped. I don't want this to be part of the performance. He said it won't be, she replied. Equally terrified and equal to it, they kissed, with the tentative respect of people who have both been weapons and don't want to be. Again. It wasn't fireworks. It was heat finding a home. After they didn't announce or pivot their public choreography, they simply moved with less calculation and more breath, which is why the betrayal, when it came, felt like a beam failing in what should have been quiet. A week before the vote. A leak hit a major paper. 2 years ago. Voss Urban bypassed standard inspection timelines at peer review. Risking safety to preserve schedule. Insider says CEO used political connections. The insider, unnamed but described with enough detail to be easily named, was an engineer who had since become a public figure. The implication was elegant. Lena. Sloan called at 6 a.m. Did you talk to anyone besides Maya? She demanded. No. Lena said, stomach gone. I told Mia about Ranger, not peer view. We didn't tell the peer view story to anyone. Sloan said coldly. You knew. Adrienne told you Lena couldn't breathe, did he? Yes. Adrienne arrived at her studio 10 minutes later, rain on his hair. The look of a man who was both furious and careful. Did you leak it? He asked. No, she said. Did you think I would? He paused. Anger flickered, a thing with right angles he was used to controlling. No, he said, but Sloan thinks in PR, Lena said. I think in trust. He closed his eyes. When he opened them, they were tired. Then someone else in this circle did. Agnes. Lena said she knew enough. Or Daniel. Adrienne said he heard enough. Or Naomi. Lena said then immediately, no, not Naomi. Not Naomi. He agreed. They traced the proof lines. The article's details matched a memo. Adrienne had emailed only to 2 people. Sloan and legal counsel. The legal counsel had been seen in close conversation with Agnes at the supper. He's clean, Adrienne said automatically. He's been with me 8 years. Then he knows how to keep the knife from leaving prints. Lena said. Adrienne looked at her as if she'd said something he'd half known, but hadn't let himself shape into words. I'll handle it, he said. Not alone. She replied at the vote. The council chamber was packed. Activists, developers, reporters, people who lived in buildings. Other people merely bought. Maya was there. Hannah too. Daniel sat at the back, the way a man sits when he expects to enjoy the fall. Agnes was nowhere visible, which meant she was near. Adrien spoke first, owning the peer view acceleration, owning the fix, naming the floor, naming the cost. He did not pretend it had been noble. It was expedient. He said expedience is not a virtue. We paid and we learned and we changed protocol. Then Lena spoke. Unplanned, she walked to the microphone because she could not. You will hear a lot about trust. She said you should. I broke it once in a stairwell. And someone fell. Mr. Voss broke it once in a timeline. And the city paid. We want a bond. Not because we deserve your money, but because you deserve the truth about how we build. Only way this works is if people like me stand next to people like him and don't look away. A council member who looked like he'd been born tired sighed. Are you engaged? Yes, Lena said. She didn't look at Adrien. But that's the least interesting connection between us. The bond passed by 1 vote. Outside in the gray that always follows big decisions. Sloan pulled them aside. Legal counsel resigned an hour ago, she said. Apparently he accepted a with consulting fee for philanthropic advisory. He didn't disclose. We have the email. Agnes is good, but she doesn't use burner accounts. Old money, believes the rules don't apply to parchment. Adrien exhaled something in his shoulders, fell and stayed down. He turned to Lena. I'm sorry. I doubted even a fraction. He said you didn't. Not really, she said. But you will again someday, and so will I. That's why structures get inspected. He laughed, a sound that contained more relief than humor. Come home with me, he said. I have a ceiling to fix, she said. Mrs. Hernandez. Rain and all, I'll come. He said. You don't know how to spackle, she warned. I know how to learn, he said. Daniel requested a meeting at a rooftop bar with a view meant to be posted. He arrived with a face arranged for contrition. Lena brought Priya, who sat 2 tables away, pretending to be deeply interested in a bowl of olives. I'm sorry. Daniel began hand around a glass of whiskey like a prop in a community theater play about remorse. I never meant you meant exactly. Lena said. You meant a story in which I was small. He flinched. Agnes pitched the invite. She said it would be elegant. She said the photographer would be discreet, and you believed her. Lena said, because you liked the picture she painted of yourself. He waited for her to forgive him. It was his habit. Women had forgiven his boyishness the way a city forgives rain. She did not. You can apologize to the tenant whose name you gave to a lifestyle writer when you fed him my story, she said. You can apologize to the intern who brought you your mail and read the photo captions aloud so you could laugh. You can apologize to yourself for being too easily entertained by your own cruelty. But you don't get to apologize to me. And imagine, that clears a ledger. He swallowed. I'm leaving Azimuth. He set a bid. I'm going to a smaller fund. That's not repentance, she said. That's new branding. He deflated, then rallied. Do you love him? He asked. Yes, she said. And the truth surprised them both with its alacrity. He'll hurt you, Daniel said softly, and for once it didn't sound like a threat. It sounded like prophecy and regret. He might, Lena said. So might anyone? So did you? Daniel nodded. I liked you best when you wore my sweaters. Like they protected you, he said, a selfish, small admission. I like me best when I don't, she replied, and left Agnes cornered. Even in her own house by a scandal that was the dullest kind. Financial. Called a drain to offer a deal that sounded like a favor. We should sit down, she said. We are both reasonable. You are reasonable when you must be, Adrienne replied. I prefer you when you're honest. Honesty is a tool, not a virtue, she said. I disagree, he said, and ended the call. Hannah's profile ran with a photo of Agnes beside a Renaissance portrait of a woman holding a small nervous dog. The caption did not flatter Ava. Free of Daniel opened a studio for textile artists in Georgetown and sent Lena a hand-woven scarf with a note. Not a lock. Naomi called Lena on a Tuesday when the sky had committed to gray. He's different. Naomi said. Not because of the bond. Because of you. Don't let him calcify. He will. He needs someone to shake him like a rug. I can be wind, Lena said, and Naomi laughed. In the Central District studio, Adrienne learned to spackle badly and then adequately. He learned to cook one dish well, a stew that tasted better the second day. He learned to sit with Lena while she worked through models, passing her tea at appropriate intervals and not taking it personally. When she swore at numbers, they fought like people who had learned how to stand their ground without salting the earth. He hated that she wouldn't move into his glass box on Western Avenue. She hated that he thought buying her building would be a love letter. It would save Mrs. Hernandez from the next landlord. He said it would make me your tenant, she replied. He thought, then said, what if I invest through a trust that you control? That's still you. What if we organize a tenant cooperative? He said, catching up to the principle instead of running ahead with money. First I put in seed capital. You and the residents run it. I get paid back last. She smiled then. The way a building smiles when a load finds the right beam. The 3-week timeline had passed to a month. Then 6. The ring stayed on Lena's finger because it belonged there now. Not because it warded off cameras. They didn't set a date because dates are for narratives. And they were building a structure. Some days Lena felt the power imbalance as a weight on her sternum. Other days she felt it like wind at her back, pushing projects forward. One evening, on the roof of her building, their building now in papers signed by neighbors, who cried and laughed, Adrienne set down a cooler of beers. Seattle spread below, all glass and stubborn brick. Tell me something. You didn't tell anyone, Lena said, cheek on her folded arm. When Pier View blew up, I went to the waterfront at 2 a.m., he said. I sat on a pylon and counted to 1,000. Because that's how my mother conned me when I was a boy. I wanted to jump and see if the cold would rearrange me into someone who didn't make preventable mistakes. She turned to look at him. Eyes narrowed against tears. The wind wanted to own. Did you want to die? I wanted a different self, he said. But I'm learning to live with the one I get. My turn. She said, when you took my hand at the Fairmont. A part of me loved you immediately, not you. She corrected the idea of you, the rescue. The glory, the way everyone shifted. I hate that part of. And I also forgive her. She'd been hungry. I can be both a meal and the person. Who teaches you to cook? He said, and she laughed. They made love like ordinary people doing an extraordinary thing, gently. After he asked, do we tell the world anything? More. Only this, she said, that we stayed. They did through a winter that cracked pipes and patience, through a spring that brought a grant for their cooperative pilot, through a summer when Naomi had a baby and Lena learned that fatigue can also be joy. If it lives in a room with a crib. Through a fall, when Agnes shifted her giving to arts and stayed 3 polite rooms away from housing. When the city cut the ribbon on the first project financed by the bond and guided quietly, stubbornly by Lena's corrected models. The mayor thanked a list of people that included Adrien and also included 3 tenants by name. Lena stood to the side with a paper cup of coffee and cried like a person who had coaxed a building back from collapse. Later, Daniel passed by. Clean, shaven and smaller, he nodded a bow to the version of her he had finally learned to see. She nodded back and didn't carry it home. The first anniversary of the Fairmont came with rain and the memory of flashbulbs. Adrienne suggested a private dinner at the Ethiopian place. Lena suggested ramen at a place with too few seats and excellent eggs. They did both. On the walk home they paused under the Fairmont stone lions. The lobby glowed indifferent. Want to go in and make a toast? Adrienne asked, half mischief. No double quotes. Lena said. Let it be what it was. A trap, he said. A hinge, she corrected. We turned. He took her hand and she let him. The ring caught a streetlight and flashed the way small true things do. What are your terms now? He asked. Like a man whose first language will always be contracts and who has learned to translate them into promises. Terms. She said. No stage surprises. Inspections every 6 months of us. We sit down and tell each other the most unflattering thing we think and the most flattering thing we can't say without flinching. We build more tenant cooperatives. We buy nothing big without asking who it displaces. We forgive ourselves on a schedule. And we eat well and love. Love is a kind of engineering, she said, throwing his lying at him because he deserved to hold it. We make something that can carry weight without collapsing when it's quiet. He kissed her forehead. A soft, schematic deal, he said. They went home not to glass but to brick, holding steady against rain. If you're still here. Thank you for walking with Lena and Adrien from a trap-lit ballroom to a roof, where 2 people chose each other without performance. Stories like this aren't fairy tales. They're floor plans. Lines drawn, corrected, redrawn and finally built with hands that know their own strength. If you felt the sting of humiliation, the quiet courage of repair, or the relief of a structure that finally holds, I hope you'll keep this one with you. If this story moved you, drop your thoughts in the comments. Tell me the moment you would have walked out or stayed and share it with someone who loves messy, redeemable people. For more grounded cinematic fiction where power meets heart and characters earn their endings, subscribe and ring the bell so you don't miss the next one. Until then. Be kind to your buildings and to the people inside.